Hey everybody, it's Daniel Jeremiah from Move the Sticks.
And I'm Bucky Brooks, and this is the Clemson Tigers defensive line of 3-6.
Gonna pass it, sacked, lost the ball.
They got 4 outstanding D linemen.
3rd and 6, and the play goes nowhere.
Play action, here comes pressure, and he's hit and dropped.
Ferrell right in his face, and it's intercepted.
It's not often you have a defensive line as talented as this Clemson group, all entering the draft at the exact same time. So we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on all the members of the Clemson defensive line.
Yeah, today you're going to hear from coaches, family members, an elementary school principal, and of course from the 4 national champion defensive linemen themselves.
All right, before we get to those interviews though, Buck, just kind of our take on these guys, and I say let's start with Big Dexter there, Dexter Lawrence. Your evaluation of him and where you see him fitting in at the next level.
You know, Dexter is a very, very talented run-stopping defensive tackle, a guy that is ideally suited to be a nose tackle at the next level. Size, strength, athleticism. He has all those things in spades, but what he really has is a unique athleticism for a guy that is 340 pounds. You just don't see guys who are that big that can move like that.
One thing it's going to do is wherever he goes, the guys that play behind him on that second level, the linebackers are going to love him because he can eat up a lot of blocks, allow those linebackers to flow and make a bunch of tackles. So you're a team that's got maybe a little undersized and you want to have some speed there at the second level. Somebody like Dexter Lawrence is going to help benefit those guys in what they do. I think he steps in day one. He's a starter. He can dominate against the run. He's going to push the pocket, as you said, as a pass rusher with maybe a little bit of upside there. I think you got some development to take place, but there is some quickness that you see that could bode well for him and his future development. All right, how about Christian Wilkins, Buck, another defensive lineman?
Look, man, you just don't see guys that are this talented and athletic up front. I mean, he is one of the rare guys that I believe can play anywhere from a 0 technique to a 9. Meaning that he can play over the nose or he can kick all the way outside and be a wide defensive end on some pass rush situations. Unique talent, a guy that has outstanding first step quickness, has excellent movement skills, balance, and body control. You can see this guy being a disruptive force at the next level in a movement-based defense that allows him to really shoot gaps and penetrate. He has all the tools that you look for at those positions.
Yeah, I don't think you want him to just sit in 2 gap. I don't think you're going to like what you get if that's what your goal is. But put him in a gap, let him get upfield. You talk about somebody on the backside in the run game with his quickness and the effort that he plays with. He's going to make a lot of plays. You try and run away from him. And then as a pass rusher, quick feet, quick hands. He's loose. He can get in gaps and be pretty disruptive there. So I'm a big fan of his. I think he's one of the 10 best players in this year's draft class. How about Clemson Ferrell here on the outside?
You know, Ferrell is someone that everyone is looking for, that speed rusher to kind of add to the defense. And Ferrell is that guy. First step quickness, burst, can bend and turn the corner, has a great closing burst to finish, but also shows a little bit of ability to kind of work inside when he feels the tackle overset. I have him graded just outside the top 20 in terms of top 20 players. But I think he's a guy that could be a perennial 10-sack artist in the right situation.
Yeah, I like his game. I think it translates really well. I think we're probably in the same boat. He's my 21st player. But what I like about him is he can do everything. Against the run, let's start there. He can set the edge, uses his length, a real physical player there at the point of attack, so you don't have to worry about him in run downs. And then as a pass rusher, more power than anything else. You mentioned that long arm. He's really good with his hands. He's got the production in college to back it up against quality opponents, so you like to see that. Usually that translates to the next level. Plays extremely hard, and the character, as everybody's going to learn as we go through these interviews today, the character is off the charts. A pretty special young guy.
Yeah, special young guys, as all of these guys. And I think the guy that is often neglected is Austin Bryant. And Austin Bryant, a guy who was a solid starter, a guy who was an excellent contributor. He is not quite in the same caliber or class as his 3 teammates, but he's someone that is certainly productive. And one thing we know about Clemson defensive linemen, they find their way into the league and they find a way to stick. Look no further than what Grady Jarrett has been able to do during his time with the Atlanta Falcons. Austin Bryant is a guy that is a blue-collar worker, kind of a hard hat and lunch pail guy, physical at the point of attack, has some intriguing traits. And so it's just a matter of where does he fit in, how can he jump into the rotation and give you contributions. But there's no doubt in my mind that he plays and plays for a long time in the league.
Yeah, no doubt. I echo everything that you just said there, and I think he's going to be a value. You know, I don't know where he's going to end up going. I have him valued in that late second round range. I think he's going to be an excellent pro football player who just got a little bit neglected and forgotten about in this group. And by the way, I feel like before we get to these interviews, All apologies to Burt Huggins, another draftable defensive lineman from Clemson. We're not doing a deep dive on Mr. Huggins today. Did not start for this team. He was a backup. But I do think he's going to be a draftable player in the 6th or 7th round. That speaks to the overall depth and talent of this Clemson group. All right, let's lead things off here with a special interview. It's a first for us here on Move the Six because this one is with the principal of an elementary school in South Carolina. All right, Buck, I can't be more excited than I am right now because during the 360 series, we've got a chance to talk to teammates, high school coaches, college coaches, guys that have trained these players as they get ready for the combine. We have yet to talk to an elementary school principal, and to me, that is the most important role of anybody we've talked to. Ashley Robertson joins us right now, and Ashley, you have a unique connection to one of the players on the Clemson defensive line. I'll give you the floor and let you share the story.
I had the one and only Christian Wilkins here. He came to our school, James and Brown Elementary in Walhalla, South Carolina, and he was our sub for the day. He was able to come to our school and be with our pre-K kids and our kindergarten kids. And so it was very interesting to see him come in and him to be extremely scared at first. And he even referenced the kindergarten cop option. And I was like, yep, that's exactly what it's going to be like for a big guy like you in this room with little kids. But he did outstanding.
You know, and thinking about that is so unique to have a star player who not only goes to an elementary, but really wants to be a part of the educational process. Having gone through his student teaching and doing that, how unique is it to have someone with his kind of accolades come to an elementary school and really want to be all in when it comes to educating the kids?
Absolutely, and it definitely was all in. When he first came in, I asked him, do you want us to tell the adults in the building to kind of stay away a little bit? But you could tell from the minute he walked in the door, he was all about his job, and his job was to educate children. It was not about the notoriety. It was not about doing a sub position and being a player. It was quite clear he was there for the children. Now the children, my kids had no idea who he was. There were very few that did. And so it was great to see him interact as if everything was completely normal for them.
Ashley, I've got to ask you, I know having got your 3 degrees there from Clemson and been a fan of this football program, what does it mean to you as a fan when you see those Clemson Tigers come running down the hill? And then I'm going to let Becky share his little story that he has with the hill. But just as a fan, as somebody that's went to Clemson, what does that run down the hill mean to you?
It's the most amazing 25 seconds in college football. And it's something that I am privileged to be able to watch every home game. And it sends chills up and down my spine every single time. It never gets old.
It never gets old, Ashley. So since you've been
Go
there,
ahead, Buck.
Since you've been there, I must let you know that I am a Tar Heel, a proud Tar Heel, and while I was in school playing for the football team in North Carolina, we went to Clemson and we had a game. And I decided with just a couple of my teammates to run to the bottom of the hill prior to the game as the Tigers were beginning to rub on Howard's Rock. And I decided that, today was the day that North Carolina was going to make a statement. So we wanted Clemson to run down the hill quickly to come and get this tail kicking that we had waiting for them. So as a fan, how would that make you feel? Would you be in your feelings? Would you feel some kind of way if you saw a Tar Heel in full Tar Heel blue regalia come and kind of wave them down and say, come on and get some of this?
Well, because we are true Southerners and we are very kind to everybody that comes to Clemson, we will just show you how it is on the field.
And I can tell you that afternoon, they certainly showed us how it was.
It didn't end well for the Tar Heels, Ashley. Let's just get to the point there. It didn't end well for the Tar Heels that day.
Right.
Didn't end well.
All right, let's go from a principal to a coach. Going to go to Gary Doherty, the man we had a chance to visit with, Buck, who was at Framingham High School in Massachusetts, where he had a chance to coach a young Christian Wilkins. Real quick, just first time you met Christian Wilkins, and what was your impression?
Well, I'd heard about Christian Wilkins from the youth football coaches in Framingham, and he had a definitive reputation of being the nicest kid off the field, but the meanest kid on the field. And when I met him, he fit his reputation.
Talk about watching that transition where he flips the switch as he kind of steps between the lines.
Well, one of my favorite memories of Christian was when we took him away to camp, and I immediately tested him. The first time we could have contact, I put him up against a 2-year captain. They went one-on-one, and Christian, honest to God, he made this kid cry. That's how good he was. This kid literally started, my captain, 2-year captain, started crying after trying to go against Christian. And then another one was a good friend of mine was the coach of an opposing team. His nephew was an all-conference player on offense, and Christian beat him up so bad, his uncle, who was the head coach, was screaming at him, telling him how embarrassed he was that he was getting beat by a freshman. You know, Christian's an exceptional player and great young man, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play in the NFL.
All right, Buck, look, you get a chance to talk to somebody that's been around these players at a young age. Tremendous insight offered there by Coach Doherty.
Yeah, tremendous insight. Big believer, coming from my background. We would talk to high school teachers and coaches, try and get even more perspective. And so to have someone who was around Christian during those formative years continues to just kind of cement the case and that he is not only a top pick, but he's a grade A+ person. Hey, look, DJ, the thing that we talked about with the Clemson Tigers is not just one guy. You talk about 4 guys that we can talk about. So the next one, we were able to catch up with his mom, Julia Parker. That is the mother of All-American Dexter Lawrence.
Julia, I gotta ask you early on, did you know Dexter was going to be a rather large human being?
No, because he was only like 6 pounds, 21 ounces.
Come on.
That's it.
Well, he definitely grew from there. Now, my partner here on our podcast, Bucky Brooks, his father had a chance to coach Dexter. He was his coach in high school. Now, can you share with us any good stories between Dexter and his coach that I can share with my co-host, Bucky?
So, he loves Coach Brooks. He always come home and tell me, I like Coach Brooks.
Well, his son, I think Dad's a little bit more likable than the son. The son can be, you never know what you're going to get with him. So, no, I'm just kidding. We love Bucky here. I want to go into the decision to go to Clemson because I understand things did not go that great when you all went for your visit there to Clemson. Tell us that story.
So we went there, it was his junior year, I want to say. And when we went to the Florida State game. After the game, we got into a bad accident. It was like a 3-car accident. Somebody hit us, and we ended up hitting somebody else.
Wow.
And so the car was totally lost. And we drove home in a total lost car because we was just so upset. We were going to spend a night. My husband was like, oh, we going home.
Well, you might be thinking there, maybe this isn't the place to be then. This did not end up well at the end of that visit.
That's what I was telling Dex. I said, oh, no, you're not coming here.
What changed? What changed?
But Coach Caldwell called us back and was like, oh, no, we got to have y'all back here. We got to show y'all what Clemson is all about. And so when we got there, I was like, okay, something totally different.
Not only are we going to talk to the high school coach for Dexter Lawrence, it's a man Bucky knows. He knows a little bit. He knows him pretty well, considering it's his father, Blake Brooks.
All right, DJ, it's not often that I get a chance to call the house to talk about a prospect that we're going to talk about on the 360 series. However, my dad, Blake Brooks, D-line coach at Wake Forest High School, had an opportunity to coach Dexter Lawrence. So we're going to bring him in. And, Pops, look, this is your debut. I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about Dex, and I want to go all the way back to the first time that you saw Dexter walk through the halls of the school. What did you think about when you met Dexter?
Well, the first time I saw Dexter really was parent night in the main gym where we invite all the parents in with their kids to sell our program, to promote our football program. And when Dexter walked into the door, I said, excuse me if I offend anybody. Blessed be the name of the Lord. When I saw him, and he was a 9th grader. Wow. That was it. He was the biggest 14-year-old I have ever seen. That's how I reacted. And I might have embarrassed
Straight to
myself because I ran over to him to make sure that the offensive line coach didn't see him first. That's my reaction.
You went straight to praise music. Coach, you went straight to praise music when you saw Dexter. That's fantastic.
It is. And Dexter was a blessing to our program, really.
Hey, Dad. So you told me a lot about Dexter being 14, but he wasn't really a football-only guy. You talked about having to lure him away from basketball. What kind of athlete was Dexter as a young player?
Dexter had a lot of ability, a lot of agility, and his footwork was fantastic. The thing that basketball helped him more than anything else was his footwork. But he was a fantastic basketball player.
So Dad, there's been a lot of fascination about what Dex could be at the next level. Clemson used him as a nose tackle primarily. Do you think he is just a nose tackle, or do you think he has the ability to do more than just be a guy that plays right over top of the center?
He has the ability to play anywhere on the defensive line. Mostly, we lined him up at 3 tech, and then we would move him around depending on the blocking schemes of the offense. Dexter can play anywhere. We even lined him up on the offensive line a couple of times during playoff games, just to a change of pace, to play big boy football, power football.
Coach, I would imagine you had a parade of college coaches rolling through there during recruiting. What was it like during that process? I would imagine just constantly you must have had head coaches rolling through your school.
It was different because we never had a player of Dexter caliber. So he was special. He's very competitive, very dominant. He's very soft-spoken, but he carries a big stick. He wants to be great. He wants to be dominant, and he is. He dominated every opponent that we played. And at one point, we used to talk all the time about personal things. And Dexter wanted to be an FBI agent. So I told him that, man, you'd be the biggest FBI agent I've ever seen. But he was a joy. He was a joy to be around.
One thing that I do know is, man, my dad adores Dexter, and Dexter has really left a strong impression on him, not only in terms of like the kind of players that he coaches and the standard that he set on the field, but just how he was in the classroom and with others in the community. And so when we think about Dexter and his impact, man, how about Clemson Ferrell and the impact that he has made? And so we want to kind of check in with a couple people that know him really well. We're going to talk to his older brother, Sigmund Ferrell, and his high school coach, Greg Lilly.
Sigmund, first question from me. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your family, the number of siblings there for your brother, and what it was like growing up in your household?
Well, actual number of siblings is in total is 9. Cleveland is the youngest of all of them, and he's the youngest son. My dad was military. I was military. My brother Byron was military. My brother Cleavester, he's a Richmond police officer. Pretty much shows Cleveland's affection for the military. He went to Benedictine, which is a military prep school as well. And just a tight family. My dad always believed in looking out for each other and being tight and taking care of family.
I want to go back to his beginning there as an athlete, because I understand his early athleticism was displayed not on a football field but a soccer field, if that's right.
For sure. A lot of people don't know about Cleveland. His actual first team sport was soccer. My dad wanted him to have his own identity, do something different, and it was soccer. He was a great soccer player at a young age. But it got to the point where me and my brothers wanted him to play football. His first game, I actually remember, he was getting double teamed, pushed to the ground, and his spirit was a little broken, and he had tears in his eyes. And I remember my father and my brother Byron and I asked him, what's going on? Why you have tears in your eyes? And he said, keep pushing me to the ground, they double team him. And we told him, nobody double team you because they see that you're a threat. You're great. So use that to your advantage. Just because people are bigger don't mean they're stronger. And he went back out on that field, and he dominated the rest of that game. And that's when I knew. I said, my brother, right there, he has the heart.
How about his can you speak on his toughness a little bit? You know, you go back and do your homework on him, and you realize he didn't play senior in high school because of an ACL injury, but able to fight through that, had to redshirt there early on at Clemson, had to kind of wait and earn his time, and then once he got that opportunity there, you saw him take off and really make the most of it.
To be honest with you, that senior year, it was really heartbreaking to see him injure himself like that and couldn't play a senior year. It bothered him. He wanted to be out there with his brothers, and it really could have took a mental toll on him. But he showed his toughness. He rehabbed. And I also have to give a lot of respect to Dabo and Coach Venable. They never gave up on him. They gave him a chance to study his position and really perfect his craft before he even hit the field. It made him even more hungry.
What was it like? Have you got a chance to be around him and the team, or during his college career? Did you pick up on the bond between this group of defensive linemen? We see all these guys entering the NFL at one time here. It's a pretty unique story.
Well, you know what? It wasn't anything shocking to me. As brothers, we were tight-knit. We look out for each other. And to see him transcend that upon his teammates and stuff, I wasn't shocked at all. That's how we were raised. And them guys, they played for each other there.
All right, Buck, excited to be joined by Greg Lilly, who's the head coach at Benedictine Prep. Coach, first of all, thank you so much for taking some time for us today. And first question from me, tell me the first time you got to see Cleveland Ferrell and what your impression was.
I met Cleveland when he was an 8th grader. He was at a middle school, and he was coming in to interview through the admissions process to hopefully be accepted to Benedictine. And quite honestly, I remember meeting his mom more than I remember meeting Cleveland, because his mom's a very impressive lady, and she was the one that brought him in, and she was a former staff NCO in the Army, so we had a connection through our military service. But Cleveland was just a tall, gangly, awkward, kind of dorky kid as an 8th grader.
Describe the first time that you had a chance to watch him move around, being in football or doing another sport.
We had a chance to watch him move around a little bit when he was playing basketball as an 8th grader, but then also as he got into the weight room with us that summer. With his length, you did kind of say, man, this kid's got a lot of potential. But quite honestly, there was other kids in that class that were coming in that we probably thought were going to be a little better football players. And it shows you what we knew back then. So,
because you've been around Cleveland for so long, how is he intrinsically motivated? How does he keep himself focused on dreaming bigger, having higher aspirations without others kind of fueling those dreams and aspirations?
I think he comes from a great family. I think he comes from a family that it's just natural for them to serve their community, to serve the country, to serve God. I remember visiting Cleveland at Clemson a year or two ago, and his goal on their team list was to serve. I mean, that was the only 2 words he wrote down, was to serve. And I think he learned that from his parents. I hope we were an extension of that during his high school years. And I know the coaches, the community, the players, his fellow defensive linemen at Clemson, I know those guys have been a great impact on him and have continued that philosophy of helping others. And I think that's been a big thing, just been put into him by his family, instilled in him by his family.
He's had to overcome a little adversity in his life. Can you talk about some of the obstacles he's had to overcome to make his way to being on the verge of being a top NFL draft pick?
But he blew his knee out going into his senior year. We had played in one scrimmage, and quite honestly had probably taken him out about 20 plays into it, because we couldn't get a look at anybody else on the defense because he was making every tackle. So we get him into the second scrimmage, and again, guys can't even get their hands on him, but he's chasing a quarterback down and doesn't get hit and just pops his knee and blows his knee out. And so he tore his ACL, and I'll never forget it. He was sitting in this office with me and with Coach York, and we told him that you had torn your ACL, you're going to be out your senior year. And this is when you could kind of tell he was growing up a little bit, and you could see his unselfishness. He started crying, and my response to him, of course, was, Cleveland, you're going to be fine. Clemson still wants you. You've got a great future ahead of you. This gives you a year to get bigger, stronger, faster. And he said, actually got emotional and got upset with me and said, Coach, I don't care about any of that. I just wanted to play with my classmates. I wanted to play with my teammates. I wanted to win a state championship in my senior year for my school. And that's when it was kind of like, God, this guy really gets it. This guy understands football. This guy understands the meaning of being a teammate and being unselfish and committing to others. And I would tell you, and then that was just an injury. The biggest adversity that Cleveland's had to deal with was, his father died when he was in 9th grade here at Benedictine. And I'll never forget it. His father came in with 2 of his brothers and said, I've gotten cancer again. This is the second time I've gotten it. I may not be around here for long. And when I go, I just need you to make sure that you push my son as much as you possibly can, that he's got a chance to be great. And we just want him to work as hard as he possibly can to achieve, all of his potential. And I don't think his dad was talking about the NFL or the NBA. I just think he wanted him to be a great man.
Well, Coach, you've given us some great insight here on your former player. And last question from me, and then I'll let you run. Again, thank you for your time. But in your opinion, does this kid carry any risk at all? Because I sure don't see it.
From a character standpoint, you guys can do the evaluation, and all those pro scouts and pro coaches do the evaluation on whether these guys are good enough to play. I know this. He's a guy I want to be around all the time. His family are people I want to be around all the time. He's a high character guy. If I'm figuring out a group of guys that I want to be around, that I want to accomplish a mission with, Cleveland's one of the first guys I want on my team. And I don't know if that means he's good enough to have to be an All-Pro, or if that's good enough to have a long-term career in the NFL. But I know he'll be successful in whatever he does because he's just a high-character young man.
Hey, Buck, it continues to check all the boxes for me on Ferrell. When you talk to people that know him at the school, and now you get a chance to dig a little bit deeper into his background, you can tell. One of the people we really looking forward to chatting with as we're doing this 360 series, focusing on these Clemson defensive linemen. I don't know there's a better one to talk to than Tom Luganbill, who is ESPN recruiting lead analyst there. He's also doing these college football games each and every week at ESPN. He's been doing it a long time. And who would better know these kids from Clemson, not only what they did at the collegiate level, but circling all the way back to their high school days.
All right, Tom, first of all, I want to focus on these Clemson kids, these defensive linemen, and go back to high school. I know, obviously, Dexter Lawrence, following recruiting loosely, I was aware of who he was and how highly coveted he was. What was he like as a high school player?
Well, I would make the argument in that particular class, which featured Nick Bosa, Ed Oliver, featured Christian Wilkins, a slew of defensive linemen, you could make an argument that he was the most talented of them, pound for pound, but he didn't play that way each and every play. His production was down because he didn't have the motor of an Ed Oliver or a Nick Bosa. But when he turned it on, he was as good as anybody in the class. And I've watched him evolve now at Clemson, and I think he's an undervalued pass rusher or pocket collapser, if you will, because of their substitution and what they did. They'd pull him off the field on obvious passing downs, so you didn't really see what he's capable of as a pass rusher, and I think it's much more that he gets credit for.
How about his teammate there in Christian Wilkins from coming out of the Northeast, if I'm correct there? What was the hype on him and the buzz on him as a prospect, as a high schooler?
One of the things that I feel is very important in player evaluation, particularly at the high school level, with a guy like Christian, he's playing in Connecticut. So the level of high school football, naturally is not going to be what it is in the state of Georgia or Texas or California or Florida. And so we place a lot of stock on, number one, does he dominate the competition he was playing in? That answer was an unequivocal yes. Then when we got him involved in the Under Armour All-America game, and you see him throughout the week, which you glean so much more than just the game. It's just like the Senior Bowl for the same reasons. He was a dominant force at two positions, on the edge, and then, of course, a defensive tackle. I think his versatility, his passion for the game, this is one of those guys, DJ, that loves the game of football. And I don't think you can ever undervalue that. And I think it shows in his play.
Talking to people that I know around that program, football character is the term that just keeps coming back to me. They said it is off the charts with this kid.
Always a smile on his face, loves the game, loves the weight room, rallies the troops. He checks all of the boxes that you can't coach. And I think that maybe what he lacks in, Ed Oliver type athleticism, he's going to make up for in some of those areas that are not only going to make your team better, but they're going to make your locker room special.
Absolutely. Well, from one kid who's highly thought of in that department to another one, Cleveland Ferrell is another one who, just get glowing reports about him. How about him in high school?
He was one of those kids that you loved because you saw a high ceiling for development. He wasn't a big, bulky kid. He had length. He was tall. you looked at him and you said, oh man, we can get this kid in the weight room, and then we can get him developed, and we can bring him along at a reasonable pace. And that's exactly what they did. Now, in my opinion, there's one thing that he's probably always lacked, and that's elite flexibility and bend.
Yeah.
But he compensates with fantastic production. He uses his hands. He's got better functional strength than people think that he does. And I think he's got an array of moves where he can counter. So there's a lot of football acumen and nuance to him, in my opinion, because he's just a good football player. You know, sometimes you're trying to put your finger on what it is that makes a guy special. Sometimes you just back away and say, this guy's just a good player.
When we're evaluating on the NFL side, Tom, we're looking at see how these guys do, big games, better opponents. I imagine on a high school field, I mean, you're probably going to see, maybe one or two kids throughout the year that can even compete with some of these guys. How difficult is it for you in your job when trying to figure these guys out?
It's increasingly difficult each and every year because we're doing also such a big volume in terms of sheer numbers.
I don't know how you do it.
I always joke with our colleagues at ESPN, and I'm saying, listen, you guys on the NFL side, you're worried about a pool of 400 guys. We're doing a pool of 2,000 guys, and they're 15, 16, 17 years old. And so there are a lot of unknown variables. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's an inexact science. You know that. I spent 11 years of professional football before dipping down into this, and it's just, there are challenges. I do know this. If you place a premium on the positions of value, offensive line, defensive line, corner, obviously quarterback, those guys aren't growing on trees. But if those guys stand out, those are the guys that you're generally going to rank higher towards the top. Because you know as well as I do, wide receivers and, those types of guys, running backs, you can throw a rock outside and hit one of those guys. They're everywhere.
Yeah, Buck, it was a pleasure to talk to Tom. He's dialed in on these kids.
His perspective and insight really helps us have even greater perspective on what these guys were, where they came from, where they're going, and how they could impact the league as pros. But look, the guy who has had maybe the biggest impact on these four players has been their head coach, Dabo Swinney. Let's listen to his words. Coach, everyone is really excited about your defensive line. So many guys that have the opportunity to go, from Christian Wilkins to Dexter Lawrence and others. What makes that group so special?
Their commitment. I mean, they're talented, but their commitment and work ethic. You take great talent plus great work ethic and character, you get a superstar. And that's what they are. I mean, they're just special human beings that just happen to be great football players. They work at it. I mean, they technically, grind. They mentally grind. They physically grind. And the good Lord gave them a ton of talent to go with it.
I'm glad you got a chance to catch up with Coach Swinney, Buck. He's quickly emerged on the Mount Rushmore of college head coaches here.
Yeah, it is great to get his insight on the kids. I mean, to a man, these kids have really been positive and complimentary of Dabo and his impact on them. And so Dabo deserves all the kudos that he gets for not only building a grade A program, but really making sure that you develop players the right way.
We've talked about what we believe these guys can be at the next level. But if we're trying to find kind of a range, a landing spot, where these guys end up, I would say starting off, I think there's a really good chance the first pick will probably come down between Christian Wilkins and Ferrell would be my guess. One of those two will be the first off the board. I would say followed by Dexter Lawrence, followed by Austin Bryant, with the first three going in the first round, in my opinion. Austin Bryant probably in that second, third round range. Where are you at on these guys?
No, I'm with you. I think the three guys that you mentioned are first round possibilities, Wilkins, Lawrence, and Ferrell. I think those guys will come off in the first round. I think if we had to go a particular order, I think Wilkins is going to be the first one to hear his name called, followed by Ferrell, and then Dexter Lawrence is right on that line of being a first round or second round talent. For those three guys, I think they come in. I think they're all day one starters and have an opportunity to impact their team immediately. Bryant, to me, is the one that is kind of one of those hidden gems, a guy that maybe is taken in the second or third round, but he ends up being a surprise starter by the middle of the year, and he gives you good contributions as a guy that is in the rotation.
No doubt. I look at a team like the Chicago Bears. They don't have a pick till the third round, Buck, but if for some reason a guy like Austin Bryant were to be there, you throw him in there, let him grow and develop, learn from somebody like Khalil Mack, I think that'd be an ideal spot for someone like him.
Oh, ideal spot. You talk about someone that plays hard, that has a knack for not only get to the passer, but is stout against the run. Those guys play in the league, and they play for a long time. May not be a A-level player in the league, but you certainly can be a B-level contributor and one that contributes for a very, very long time.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up this edition of the 360 series. All of our video content, NFL.com/MTS video, YouTube.com/NFL. We've got you covered. Thanks for listening here to Move the Sticks, the 360 series featuring the Clemson defensive line. He's Bucky Brooks. I'm Daniel Jeremiah. We'll see you next time.